second here. I see lots of names, a couple pictures. So we're just gonna give it a second for people to connecting to audio. I see an awesome turf field that looks like a football field. All right. Hi, everybody. I am Hilary Hartman with Cardiosport, and I'm with Lisa Williamson, obviously with UGA. We'll introduce ourselves in a second here once we get into it. But I just wanted to kick off the call. And first off, thank you all for attending. We appreciate it. Here on the East Coast, it's Friday afternoon. And so if any of you are out here, I'm sure you have lots of exciting things to do Friday afternoon. On the West Coast, I know it's earlier, so it's you still having your coffee over there. But we're super excited for today's call and today's discussion. I want to just kind of kick it off by saying, and Lisa's going to kind of take over for a little bit, just that, obviously, myself, I represent one of the vendor partners of NIRSA's, but our goal today is really not to talk at all about our specific solution. That's not what this is for. It's really about just talking about the overall topic and kind of raising awareness and creating some understanding of what it means to motivate the athletic-minded individual post-game. So it's going to kind of go back and forth between Lisa and I. I'm going to kick it over to her to kind of start. I'm going to share my screen here in a second with you guys. But we really, really want to encourage questions. We'll be kind of monitoring the chat and things like that as the other person's speaking, but we really want you to have questions, and we're going to go through just to set expectations. I think we have about 6 or 7 slides. It's not that many, probably take like 15 minutes. And then the rest of it, we really just want to open up to your questions. And then either Lisa, who is the head of UGA, Rec Center, or myself will answer depending upon who the question's to, okay? Anyone have any questions before we begin? Speak now, forever hold your peace. All right, I'm going to share my screen over, so give me 1 second. Okay, here we go. So let me just move this over here a little bit, get this to our next slide. This is our topic, obviously. All right, so just real quick, and then I'm going to kick it to Lisa. This is just a little bit about us because some of you don't know us, obviously. So I am the co-founder and vice president of marketing business development for Cardiosport. Our brand is an athletic style training program that really caters towards, providing a solution for the athletic mind. We work with rec centers like yours all over the country. Lisa's one of them that offers it. As well as health clubs, YMCAs, people independently run this program. It's all over the place. I am an expert in understanding what motivates and excites and engages the athletic mind. And that's really what I'm going to focus my discussion about today, is like helping you guys to really understand, what are those things that you need to have in your programming to help engage this audience so you can gain more people into your facility. And just personally, I'm a massive sport, fitness, and music enthusiast. So that's a little bit about me. I'm going to kick it to Lisa and let her intro herself and then move into the next segment.
Hey everyone, I'm Lisa Williamson. I'm the Assistant Director for Fitness and Wellness at the University of Georgia. I am a former collegiate track and field athlete, so this is a topic that's definitely near and dear to my heart as well. I'm a coach, a personal trainer, fitness instructor, as many of you, if you're a fitness and wellness person, are. And then I'm definitely passionate about well-being, fitness, and coaching in particular. So like I said, this is a topic that's near and dear to my heart, and looking forward to talking with you today.
All right, next slide here.
Okay, so when we think about how do we engage students, and I know that is something that is kind of a hot topic among lots of different rec centers, especially now that we are kind of entering this virtual world. I'll give you a little history, kind of in my personal situation. We were charged, so we had about a 92% engagement rate with all of our students on campus, and I recognize that is pretty high already. We have a phys ed program. All students on campus have to take a phys ed credit, and so they all have to come in through our doors to do that. So that helps our numbers a little bit, but our goal really was to engage that 100% of the student population. So we wanted 100% of the student body to be either participating in our programs or coming in to our building to use the facilities, or whatever it might be. And so when we looked at that goal, as a department, we looked at that goal, and each area was trying to figure out, okay, what ways can we engage more students? How do we do this? What's the best method? How can we engage the folks that we haven't been engaging currently? And we looked at some of our non-traditional group fitness participants in fitness and wellness in our area in particular. And we're just trying to think about, okay, who are the people that aren't currently using our group fitness program? So why aren't they currently using our group fitness program? We looked at also collaborating with other program areas. So, could we pull from club sports or from outdoor rec, or could we help supplement what club sports, outdoor rec were doing as well? So trying to help each other, and then also trying to figure out what's that mix of who are the best folks that we can be reaching out to on campus and other areas to try to engage more students. And so one of those groups was this athletic-minded student that maybe was a former athlete or had enjoyed playing sports in the past and really wasn't getting that as they came to college and made that transition. So.
Great. All right, let me move to the next slide. And again, I know you guys are muted, so I don't know if you can unmute or not, but if you can and you want to ask a question, by all means, like pop it somewhere, and Lisa's going to monitor the comments as well. All right, so this next slide, I really just want to start off by defining what I mean by athletic-minded. Obviously, part of it's kind of obvious, but the reason I define it right off the bat is that a lot of times when you say the word athlete, people are like, oh, that's not me. I played when I was in 7th grade, or I played, in high school, so I'm not really like an athlete, or oh, that was many years ago, right? And the reality is, they say that because they feel a little bit insecure because it's been a long time and they weren't, Cristiano Ronaldo, but they were still an athlete, okay? And I think many of you out there are probably just like Lisa, former collegiate athletes, high school athletes, what have you. So this is probably something that's going to resonate with all of you as we go through it. But I really want to start by saying the way we define athletic-minded, which I specifically use that term versus just athlete because it's different, and I'll explain why in a bit, is that that's really any person who grew up playing sports, regardless of how long they played for or what level they played at. Doesn't matter if they were good or bad. It's really about how do they connect to movement mentally, physically, and emotionally in the most motivating way. All right. I kind of call out here team sport versus individual. The reason for that is that all types of athletes, and Lisa's a perfect example, and in kind of an individual sport, love this program. So we have them from all across the board, right? But it was designed first and foremost for the team sport athlete, mainly because the individual athlete, although they'll fall in love with this many times, they do have other options that they're able to individually feel that kind of push and that emotion to, depending what they played. So for example, a former gymnast may love CrossFit because there's a lot of qualities in CrossFit that are related to gymnasts, right? A lot of people who are doing, kind of track and those types of programs will love other programs that kind of emulate that and put them that same purpose. So being an individual sport athlete, you have a little bit more out there already that might fit you. With that said, I can tell you that many, many, many individual athletes find this even more motivating because it still gives them the same kind of purpose-driven movement that it gives all the team sport athletes. And the last piece I'll say here is this also includes the group of people in your rec center that never played a sport in their life and that are just fans of sports, or maybe they always wanted to and did not have the opportunity. We have many people, I'd say on the average, about 30 to 40% of people that take this program literally never played a sport in their life. And they're just like, wow, I never really had the opportunity. And now I feel like I do. It's awesome. I'm a later in life athlete, or whatever you want to call it. Anything there you want to add, Lisa?
I would just like to add that, in regards to the individual athletes, me being one of them, Hilary's right. This athletic-minded mindset that you have as an athlete. For me, there were times where I, even as a fitness director, didn't find a program that was, or an activity that was duplicating that. that feeling of just kind of being in the zone, in the game, or, you know, being with a team, a group of people that was similarly minded to me. So that's what I really enjoy.
Awesome. Okay. So next, all right. So, and again, if you played sports, this is probably going to make, you know, it's kind of probably resonate with you. So basically, like, what does the fitness life cycle of an athlete look like? And obviously, in your formative years in high school, middle school, a PE teacher's job is to essentially set the foundation, coaches, for lifelong love of movement for younger people so that they can kind of carry that with them throughout their lives. In the rec center, it's very similar, right? You have kids coming in, transitioning, and the goal is to engage as many as possible so that they can then graduate with a degree and all those great things, but also with a passion for movement, which we all know at this point is integral to overall wellness, both mentally, physically, and emotionally, and success in life, really, right? When you look across the board, I don't know if you guys know this, but if you look across the board at high-level leaders, CEOs, and of companies, major companies, one of the top common traits they all have at that higher level, vice president and above, is that they're all very active in their lifestyle and they make working out a priority. Whatever it is, that quality is across the board because it does contribute to all of those factors, mental, physical, emotional. So it's really important that no matter who you are, you figure out something to engage in, right? So there are a lot of awesome options out there in the world that have nothing to do with sports. There's Pilates and bar and yoga and Zumba, and they're all awesome programs, and they all cater to a specific group of person or type of person. Somebody who loves dance is going to love Zumba. Somebody who loves ballet is probably going to love bar. That's fantastic. If they connect to it, that's what they should do. Many people fill your facilities every day that love traditional fitness offerings. They love Les Mills. They love, circuits, boot camps, all that kind of stuff. They love it. And that's fantastic as well. Those are great solutions for those people. But so when you look at an athletic person, what typically happens to them, and they don't know why, is this. They play sports for almost all of their formative years as their primary form of movement. Maybe it goes through high school, maybe it goes through college if they're lucky, maybe post-college if they're really lucky, and then it ends. Almost always, if you talk to an athlete about why their athletic career ends, it has nothing to do with the fact that all of a sudden they hate the sport. I don't all of a sudden dislike playing basketball or soccer or track or whatever. It ends because of what I'd consider an external factor. And by that, what I mean is I suffered an injury and I can no longer play. I don't have the opportunity to play. I'm not kind of skilled enough to kind of go to that next level. And or a big one in college is I don't have the time to devote to and focus. I have to focus on my major and my studies and getting my work done, so I can't kind of dilute that effort, okay? So it's almost always an external factor. So what do? Well, athletes are very accustomed to obviously vigorous movement, so they go to the gym or they go outside or whatever, and they try to figure out what their new normal looks like, something we're all doing today in life with everything going on. And so they go out, right? And it's not easy to figure out your new normal after years and years of doing something a specific way, many times 15 plus years. About 30% of those people will be dedicated like Lisa and fall in love with something new, stay consistent, stay committed, and make it happen. The rest of them, the bulk majority, will struggle to stay consistent for the rest of their lives. They will either yo-yo back and forth between being a person who works out and completely stopping. They will program hop if they're more dedicated. So they'll be like, 6 months, I'm going to do this HIIT class. 6 months, I'm going to do this circuit. 6 months, and they don't think about it consciously, but really they're bored. What they'll say is like, well, I got bored, so I want to try something new, right? And so they'll kind of yo-yo and not work out at all, and then work out hard, yo-yo, not work out, which is obviously one of the last things we want people to do because we need long-term consistent movement. They'll totally give up, which is the worst case scenario, or the program hop, which program hop's better than the other alternatives. But the negative for that is that the person who's doing it is not feeling completely like motivated and satisfied. Something's missing for them. So, kind of why is that? Why does this happen? So one of the things that, we kind of look at before I get into like why is like, stepping back away from exercise and going back to the person playing the sports, when you look at a sport, okay, so Lisa, you ran track, correct? You said?
Yeah.
How many years did you do that for?
I started when I was 7.
Okay, so from 7 till through college, so 23, 22?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's a lot of years. That's, what is that, 15 years almost? Close to 15 years, right? For almost 15 years, you devoted a big chunk of your life to doing the same thing over and over. Tell me, when you ran track, how often were the races like different in the rules of the race?
As far as like the type of race that I was running,
Like, yeah, let's say like, what, I don't know, you do 50-yard dash. What do you do? Like, what's it? Give me a race.
well, I was a heptathlete, so I did a lot of different things, but I kind of grew up running the 400 and the 800.
Okay, so when you ran the 800, the 400, how often did you go to a race and they just changed everything up and you had no idea what was coming?
Never.
Never, right? It's the same thing every single
Yeah.
time. But for some reason, I would venture to say, and I don't even know because I'm not you, but that you were excited and motivated every time you showed up to that track for a race.
For sure. Yeah.
Right? You were looking forward to it. Your heart was beating. There was adrenaline. There's excitement, right? The same can be said for somebody who plays basketball. I'll use basketball a couple times today, but let's take basketball because most people have seen it. It's a pretty easy sport to follow from if you've watched it. There's a lot of movement back and forth. If you've played basketball or you're a basketball player, soccer, hockey, lacrosse, you've probably played for 15 plus years if you played through high school, okay? At least at this point, most of your students have for sure. They start at like 5 now. So they played all these years. Every time they show up to the court, in basketball's case, it's basically the same exact dimensions every time. There's 2 hoops, there's 5 players on each side. None of that ever changes. The only thing that changes is what happens in the game. And because of that fact, the players, although they are never changing the overall structure, are completely surprised or having to keep their head up kind of throughout the game the entire time. It's never something they can just check out and do. So when you look at that scenario, what comes into play is like, how do you break down what it is that makes an athlete want to do the same thing over and over and over and over again for years, right? So by the time you're like junior, senior, usually you're playing like, well, some people are playing more, but a lot of them refine to one sport. So now they're like totally focused, right? So what is it about sport that makes them do that? We're going to talk about that in a second. And then why does an athlete stop playing? We covered that. It's almost always not because they want to stop and they stop loving it. There's an external factor. And then what are the attributes of sport that make people connect to it so strongly and make them want to do it over and over again? Again, that basketball player, for the rest of that basketball player's life, if somebody asks them to play pickup at 10 o'clock at night and they really liked basketball, they're probably going to make it happen. Whereas that same person will probably tell you that they couldn't make it to the gym today because they were too busy. Right? It's really about creating priority. So hopefully this makes sense. I can't hear you guys, so I'm hoping you're nodding along or commenting. But so let's go into the next piece. So okay, we're at college now. That's where you guys all are. So let's focus on that. So what are the options, right? I played sports my whole life growing up in high school. What are my options? There's lots of options, all right? But we're going to discuss kind of how they break down. Varsity sports, option 1, like Lisa participated in, right? Very important program, amazing program. There are 30 million athletes playing team sports every year in the US. Less than 500,000, I'm sure you guys know these stats, get to play at this level. So varsity sports are an awesome solution, but for a very small number of people, regardless of whether you're UGA or you're in a very small school. Intramurals and clubs, also a fantastic option, but a lot of students don't participate in it because a lot of students who played sports don't participate in organized intramurals or club sports because they are very competitive now. They do take a lot of time and they have to focus on kind of their schoolwork. So what we hear from a lot of athletes or former athletes is like, I want that push and that rush, but I don't want the intensity of the schedule because I'm stressed about being able to keep up with my schoolwork, right? So all those are fantastic solutions, and a lot of people participate in them, and you have great groups there, and they can definitely use this kind of training style as well, which we'll talk about. It's really about that last segment as a priority, who doesn't have anything, right? They come to the gym and now they're kind of going into their typical programs that are marketed towards athletes or circuit trainings, boot camps, HIIT trainings. And we'll talk a little bit about why those can be fantastic programs, but those are the types of programs you typically see athletes yo-yo between or in and out of. And I'll explain to you why in a minute. Lisa, you have anything to add here?
Yeah, so with the fitness options, you know, I think we think about the traditional, like Hilary said, the circuits, the boot camps, the HIIT trainings, and these are all supposed to be these high intensity options, these super intense workouts, and you're supposed to leave sweating and exhausted, and that's great. But there's just one element of, you know, all of these workouts that there's something missing, I think, for the athletic minded individual. And that is really, for me at least, that was kind of what I was searching for when I was looking for what can duplicate kind of that practice environment, that being in competition, you know, that environment for me is something that was missing. So even though I was, you know, as a assistant director for fitness and wellness, I'm participating in all of these formats. I've probably taught all these formats, but it was just that one element that was missing. And I think we're going to talk about that here in a second. So
yeah, okay. All right, so next up, so let's start with the physical attributes, because you said it perfectly, Lisa. Like, you get a great workout in those programs. I've taken them before in my life. I've taught, you know, certainly before I found this program that I work with now, I've taken before in my life. You know, I loved, and this is like the classic thing I always said, and I'm sure many of you will resonate, is like, people will be like, do you like it? And you're like, I love how I feel afterwards. It's like the push I need. It gives me the exhilaration, like the, you know, I feel like I can't get like oxygen deep enough if I don't do those like push exercises, right? So I never really was like, I hate it, or, you know, and I didn't cognitively really think about it. I just thought, well, this is the best I'm going to get. I like how I feel afterwards, right? It's important to me as a human to be moving and active and get that level of push, and this is what it takes, so I'm going to do it, and I'm going to love that feeling afterwards and how I feel about it, because I liked the actual physical, like, opening up of the lungs and all of that. You'll hear many athletes tell you that, right? So obviously, when you look at team sports here, you look at what is required, okay, like a sport. I'm playing soccer, lacrosse, basketball, baseball, track, obviously. All of them require a linear lateral transition, fast-paced, vigorous movement, cardiovascular, strength, agility, plyometrics. Really hard physical push. So an athlete is accustomed to that. That's what they grew up doing. They want that. They don't want to be like dancing around not sweating. They want to be sweating and dripping by the time they're done. That's what they're used to, right? And I'm sure anyone who played sports feels that way. Flip over to kind of training for athletes. So a traditional boot camp or circuit, a HIIT, same thing. Cardiovascular is usually there, the strength is there, the agility, the plyometrics. There's a hard push. You come out, you're winded, you're sweaty, all those things, depending upon a lot of times the trainer or like the structure of the day. Obviously, some of these elements are more or less. Cardiovascular tends to be the thing that gets a little bit left in the dark. A lot of times, usually strength is pretty solid, agility is quite a bit, plyometrics, but cardio is the hardest thing to make athletes want to do without chasing the ball. So that tends to kind of like fall to the wayside unless you're someone who loves to run, okay, which I am not. Hold on 1 second. So, oops, I think this thing's like jumping. Hold on 1 sec. Let's go back. Give me 1 second. Sorry, guys. This is like jumping around and not moving now. All right, so I'm gonna have to kind of just move to this next thing. So, all right, so what is it about team sports that what I would be called like the X factor? So like, what is it about playing sports that makes somebody want to do the same exact game with the same exact rules multiple days a week for 15 to 20 years nonstop? And if given the opportunity, will often jump up and do it again at any age, as long as their body can handle it, right? So really that X factor has nothing to do with the physical side of it. That physical side of it is addressed in many ways and many different programs. The piece that makes the difference in terms of long-term consistency with wellness and fitness for anyone, regardless of what motivates them, is the connection to it. And so for, obviously, like I said, someone who loves to dance, the first thing I would tell them is go check out Zumba. It's probably awesome. You're going to love it because you're not going to feel like you're working out. You're going to feel like you're dancing. And that's really the key. Like, that's a great situation because it feels like fun, not work. All right. So for somebody who does sports, what are those things that are the X factor that will make them stop program hopping and stop kind of yo-yoing back and forth and get re-engaged in movement after their playing days are over? And those things are really this kind of list, and they're all mental and emotional. Okay. So when you play a game, everyone that has ever played knows that it is basically a perfect trifecta of mental, emotional, and physical effort, right? It is not just physical. There is so much more to it. And your emotional and mental side is what really connects you to it, okay? And then just like the physical push. So the first thing is purpose-driven, right? So if you're running a race, Lisa, you have a purpose. In that case, your purpose is to win, to get to where you need to
finish
be.
line as fast as I can.
Yeah, and I think like even more, like even everyone says, well, the purpose is to win, but even more, your goal is to get from point A to point B. That just happens to mean that you win if you get there first, right? That's all it is. Point A to point B. You're not even thinking about winning during the race. You're just thinking about point A to point B. If you go for a run, even though you obviously like running, it feels very different if you go out on a Saturday morning for a casual run, right? It's kind of about the run, not the purpose of getting point A, point B. Does that make sense?
Right.
So you guys, okay. Yep. So, and then the second piece, and this is definitely indicative, it's really for all of it, but for team sports, it's really important, is the constant decision making. So where am I going? Where do I need to be? Constantly having the mind engaged and working the entire time the physical is. Along with that, it's the unpredictable nature. So kind of individual, sports are a little bit different in this, but not entirely. So you can certainly speak to it, Lisa. But if I'm playing soccer, lacrosse, or hockey, or playing against somebody else, I don't know what they're going to do next. So I have to be on my toes and know what's happening at all times and have my head up on a swivel and be able to be aware of only my job and my space. But I also be aware of what everyone else is doing and where they are at all times. My teammates, the opposite players, things like that. All of those things make you, which we'll talk about in a second in more detail, focus on something other than exercise. And this is like the magic. This is the key to it. So all of the things happening in a game, the athlete doing them is never once thinking about the exercise. So if I'm sprinting in a soccer game to get the ball to go make a goal, never once does it cross my mind that I am actually going to have to run and sprint to get it. I just simply react and do my job. My job happens to require physical effort. Lisa, just like you with track, like you know you're running, but that's not what you're thinking about. You're simply thinking about get to point B, period, right? So what happens is the focus, the mental focus and the emotional focus comes off the exercise and goes on to the activity that you're doing, the job you're playing in the sport.
And Hilary, real quick, just this is why I actually, as a heptathlete, I really love the hurdles because, or the 400 meter race because, I had a hurdle every 10 meters. So every 10 meters, I was having to worry about the next hurdle, and I wasn't thinking about, what I was actually doing as running the 400 meter dash, right? But I had that hurdle every 10 meters that I had to get over. So it was helping distract me from the actual activity that I was doing.
That's a great point. And that's actually why you look at like Spartan races and things like that. Those kind of races are so popular because that's what it's doing. So many more people engage in those. And so many of those people are former athletes because they love the fact that they're just thinking about the next thing. I mean, I've done them before. I don't do them anymore. When you walk on the fire and all that, it's over top for me. But, some people love it. And that's what I mean is like, they literally just love the fact that like, they are not thinking about the actual exercise, but just doing the next thing, the next job. And that is what, for years and years, athletes' minds are trained to do, is just think about doing the job. It just so happens that job requires you to do physical effort, like sprinting, backpedaling, all those types of things. And then obviously the last part, if you're a team sport, is team. And track would be a part of that, like any sport, swimming, all of them have teams. So there's a team camaraderie piece to it. So bottom line is it's kind of the physical, mental, and emotional connection. Those are some of the things that go into creating that. So when you look at traditional fitness, right, so let's go back to the HIIT or the boot camp or circuit, which again, all fantastic programs, serve a great audience. Depending on the trainer and the program you're using, some can be very, very effective, right? But they have innate kind of qualities that make it so that it's difficult for an athletic-minded person to stay with it long-term, mentally and emotionally. Not physically, it's not even about that. It's really the mental, emotional. And that's just because it's just the way that it's structured. So predictable nature, even if the instructor's kind of changing it up here and there, it's still somewhat predictable, meaning that if I'm in a circuit training, I can see that, like, although the session of the day is different, I can look across and see I'm going to go do the box jumps next, or I'm going to move to the ropes next. Like, I can see what's coming at me, even if I didn't know before I walked in the door. Repetition. So what I mean by repetition is, even though, again, a trainer may change things up, if I'm doing the ropes, I'm probably going to be doing that for an interval of 30 seconds, a minute. I'm going to do it for a timed interval, right? If I'm doing box jumps, I'm either going to be doing it for a timed interval, or I'm going to be doing it for a number, right? 20 box jumps, 20 seconds, right? If I'm doing mountain climbers in a boot camp, I'm probably going to be doing, again, like a HIIT type style where it's based on time, or it's based on reps, okay? So one or the other, I'm going to repeat based on time or reps. So I'm going to focus as I think about being in that, and I think about doing 30 seconds of mountain climbers, and you guys can't answer, unfortunately, but Lisa, I'll ask you then to be my person. You know, if I tell you to do 30 seconds of mountain climbers, what are you thinking about?
The awful nature of mountain climbers the whole time.
Just getting it done, right? Like, just the mountain climbers, getting it done, right? You know, did you ever play basketball or no?
I did, yeah.
If I throw you a ball and we're on the court and I look at you, what are you thinking about?
Where do I go? What do I do with this?
Right. Where do I get it? How can you get to the basket? Like, and then you're going to do whatever it takes. You're not going to be thinking about the exercise and steps you have to take. You're going to be thinking about simply getting your job done, right? All right. So the focus is on the exercise. So that's the biggest difference, is that although the workout is really hard, you're making the athlete's mind and emotions focus on getting through the exercise, right? Now, somebody who loves traditional fitness and connects traditional fitness will love that. They like that. That's what they enjoy. So that's why I'm saying it's a fantastic program for those types of people. But for people who aren't wired that way mentally, it's very difficult for them to stay with it long term. And again, the purpose is different. So when you play a game, the purpose is to play the game, to win, to do all the things that are necessary, do your job. The purpose in exercise traditionally is about wellness, fitness, weight loss, muscle gain. And that's like the only purpose. That is not to say that if we segue over to a program, you know, that is designed for athletic-minded people, that obviously the goal is going to be wellness, fitness, weight loss, muscle gain. It's going to be the goal. But in the mind of the participant, the key is that they aren't thinking about that goal. That just simply is the goal of the program. Does that make sense to you guys? Lisa, is it making sense? I know you know, but is it making sense how I'm saying it? Okay. All right. So what is the key to long-term fitness? And then we're going to wrap it up here, you guys, and get to questions. So what's the secret? Okay. So what is it? Like, how can you do this? Okay. So this is the key. If you're going to implement a program in your facility that really want to track this audience of former team sport athletes or former athletes of any type, okay, what you need to do is to basically create a sense of play, or what we call purpose of play, through a tactic called disassociation. And so what I mean is that you're going to need to use things. There's a lot of different elements you can use. In our program, we use a ball and music and movement and constant decision-making in our program. You know, if you're creating your own program, it's about using different tools and setting up the program in a way that the athletes constantly have to use their mind and feel emotionally charged and connected to it. So like a perfect example of this is like, if you think, oh, there's a misspelling, sorry about with basketball, but with basketball, right? If I used it a little bit earlier, but I'll just kind of hit it one more time. If you watch a basketball game, right? The players playing the game are generally doing 5 fundamental movements. That's pretty much all they're doing exercise-wise. They're running, backpedaling, jump squatting, squatting and lunging and like lateral shuffle, lateral movement kind of stuff. That's basically all the players do, okay, from an exercise perspective in a basketball game. All right. And they do that for, depending upon the level, usually 12 minutes, 4 periods, depends on the level of play, obviously. And they're doing that the entire time. If I had you then come out with me, Lisa, for 48 minutes and simply do those 5 movements in 4 12-minute periods, if you will, on a basketball court with no audience, no team, and no ball, how much fun does that sound?
Sounds like a horrible practice to me.
Right. So the point is, those 2 environments are exactly the same, but one injects the purpose of play, making people feel like they have a purpose greater than exercise. And one is just about the exercise, which makes them only think of the exercise, and then they feel like it's work. So if you're looking at kind of creating a program, and I'll certainly kick it over to Lisa here right after this, you know, what you really want to think about is like, how do we create a wellness strategy? Because that's obviously very important. Fun is great. Getting people connected is great. But you also have to have a program that's sound in strategy, that's going to be wellness-based, not competitive, in my opinion. You know, because competition obviously is great for the competition, but it's not designed for the wellness kind of world. And that is attracting their mind and making them think of everything but the actual exercise. And then also gets them fantastic results, right? So Lisa, I'll kind of kick it to you. That's our last slide. Do you want to add anything on that?
Yeah, and this is, you know, exactly why we have TVs right above our treadmills, right? In the facility. We're trying to get people to dissociate and to think that running is not so bad. So that's exactly why we do that.
And that's coming from a runner.
Yeah, I definitely do that. So, but this is just a way to transfer that over to the group fitness setting. So thinking about it in the group fitness setting rather than, you know, in our facility. And obviously people run in front of treadmills, run in front of TVs on treadmills all the time. So obviously there's something to it. So how can we do this in a group fitness setting and really think about getting folks kind of disengaged so that they can be engaged in our programs?
Yes, so I think that's it. So what I'm going to do is stop the share and we're going to kick it over to questions. Oh, there's a lot of you still there. That's fantastic. Okay, so hopefully don't bore you cheers. So I think at this point, we're going to kick it over to you guys for questions. Lisa's going to kind of head it up. If you have a question specifically for me, I'm happy to answer, but otherwise I'll let Lisa take it unless she wants me to jump in.
Sure, yeah. Feel free to throw questions in the chat, or if you just want to go ahead and speak up, that's fine too. Well, I'll go ahead and ask a question. Does anybody currently do this with any of the programs that they run in their facility right now? Do you have programs that you're running that are kind of using this element of dissociation?
Great question. I think everyone's muted right now. I think we have to unmute people. I don't know if you guys do that. Oh, Michael Thomas says no, he does not.
Thanks, Michael.
You know what, can we unmute yeah, there we go. You guys are unmuted now. Sorry, I think we didn't have control of that. So Michael says no. Does anyone run programs for kind of like that for athletes or athletic-minded people? No?
Or is anybody trying to engage their athletic-minded folks and kind of looking for solutions on that? Maybe we can discuss some of the ways that you could do that.
Is anyone here from Club Sports or Intramurals that has questions about that? Oh, yes, Yoga for Athletes. That's a great program.
Yeah. So, Gabby, what do you do with the Yoga for Athletes program that makes it different than your traditional yoga classes?
Hi, everyone. Gabby with App State. The Yoga for Athletes program is differentiated from the other yoga classes in a surprising way. We heard from athletes that their trainers or their coaches are already working them out for competitive purposes. So the Yoga for Athletes program is actually quite more recovery based than it is like competition.
Is that for varsity sports or is that for club intramural or both?
It could be any, yeah, for all.
Awesome.
That's great.
And Ryan says we do yoga for climbers and several other social well-being fitness classes. So Ryan, can you tell us a little bit about how you've tailored that specifically to climbers?
So we do the yoga for climbers specifically because we had honestly a request for it to help them train for different climbs and different holds and things like that. So that's where that stemmed from, is just a student request. The other social well-being fitness class, I think you hit the nail on the head about the running and the TVs. People don't want to feel like they're working out. They want that social aspect, especially I see a lot with our Group X classes. There's people that they don't come because it's a yoga or a HIIT or a circuit style class. They come because they're, you know, their roommates in it or their sorority sisters in it. They want that social aspect, and any aspect of fitness or wellness or anything we do, we try and make sure that it's fun, it's engaging, and it's kind of taking their mind off things.
Yeah, for sure. This is going back to the yoga for your climbers. We do a Come Get Strong through our outdoor rec program, and it's for climbers, and it's basically a fitness program for climbers. So we do something very similar at UGA.
April's starting a ski conditioning classes, so we'll hopefully run between September and Thanksgiving break to get students conditioned for ski and snowboard. Very nice.
That's awesome, April.
April, where are you?
I'm at the University of Utah, so Salt Lake City. So
oh yeah, you definitely need that.
Yeah.
Park City, you have all the good ones.
Yeah. Well, we noticed that a lot of, like, when I would get personal training new clients in and they were filling out their assessments, a lot of the things that they would say was, I want to get in shape for ski season. So I'm like, well, I might as well make a small group class for that.
Yeah.
That's what everyone wants.
Yeah, for sure. And so as y'all are creating these programs like the yoga for athletes or the yoga for climbers or this ski conditioning small group, or if you run any other small groups, you know, you can start to think about how to incorporate this dissociation into the training. And so how do you make sure things are going lots of different directions, not predictable? How can you do the kind of the opposite of what traditional fitness has done to really engage those folks that are athletes that are signing up for your program? So this is a great way to, and technique to kind of incorporate into your program design. Anybody else do any fun programs like that? Or does anybody think that they might want to start using this dissociation, kind of that concept in any of your programs?
Yeah, and if anyone has questions on like how you actually like translate it, because obviously the concept makes sense to most people, right? Like disassociation, taking the minds off one thing, putting it on something else, and then getting better results and more engagement by doing that. But obviously sometimes it's difficult to actually translate that to like, okay, what actually does that? So feel free to ask questions around that. How do you satisfy competition with other aspects? Erin, can you just explain a little bit more what your question means? How do you satisfy the competition with other aspects?
Yes. So when you're playing sports, there's a winner and a loser, and you're competing against somebody else. And in group fitness, you're competing against yourself and not necessarily somebody next to you. So how would you address that competition aspect of,
That's a great question.
Yes.
So that question we get asked a lot, and Lisa, you can certainly add to it because you experience it. It's sort of difficult to like get your mind around this a little bit, but what happens is with the tactic, and I don't want to really like talk specifically about our program, but in the way that like kind of the dissociation works within our program, I just have to say that because that's what I'm going to explain, is that basically everything is moving so quickly and there's changes every 2 to 3 seconds, like in a game. So the person is basically forced mentally to constantly have their mind focused on something other than what they're doing to keep up for what's next. It's kind of like follow the leader. So like Lisa's doing it and I'm following her and I'm doing the same thing. I'm trying to keep up with those changes she's doing. So as a result, the competition comes in within yourself, like, and that's a slogan a lot of people kind of say, but if you actually like experience it, and there's so much going on around you, you literally don't have a chance to do anything except kind of go against yourself. It's kind of like you versus the ball. Like, and if you actually think about, the best way to think about it is if you think about, did you play a sport, Erin, at all? Or dance or anything?
Yes.
Okay,
Softball.
what do you do? So, okay, all right. So in softball, you are playing against an opponent, right? So you're up at bat, okay? Technically your opponent at that moment is the pitcher, right? But even though it's you versus the pitcher to some degree right there, it's really you versus yourself, right? Like, can you figure out the puzzle to hit the ball based on what you see coming at you, okay? So it is like overall a sport is obviously competition versus another team, but you actually have to like kind of compete with yourself to constantly have your mind going to be able to react to the things. And then once you start running, even though first base, second base, they're trying to get you out, your only focus is getting there and then just getting around. It's not even like you're really thinking about that person as your opponent. You're just thinking about getting your job done and getting around whatever obstacle is in front of you, whether that's a human or a ball or a hole or whatever it is. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that does. Thank you.
Yeah, so it's hard to think about, but if you really think about it, like when people ask me like when I say to them like, what do you want to do in a game, what's the goal, and they're like, win. Well, definitely, but that's obviously the goal. But when you really think about what it feels like to dance or to be in the game, the only thing you can think about in it is that second right in front of you. And that is really what the disassociation does for people, is that it makes them so laser focused on the second in front of them that they don't have time to worry about anything except just doing the next job, and getting better at that job every time. Does that make sense?
And Erin, going back to the competition element of like, how do you satisfy that hunger for competition? Even though you're competing against yourself, what you can incorporate is physical challenges. So whether it's like how many push-ups can you do, or how many, you're challenging the participants in whatever format, but with Cardiosport specifically, there's a lot of physical challenges that are incorporated, like push-ups on the ball, or different things like that are incorporated to give the participants something to work up to, because no one is going to start a class being able to do a push-up on a soccer ball, but after they've taken the class for a while, they might be able to do a couple push-ups, and then they might be able to do a few more the next couple weeks, and as they take that class kind of progressively, they're going to obviously improve. So by the end of once they get really, really good at it, they're able to do tons of push-ups on a ball, and it's nothing to them. And so that's something that I think also is kind of that competition aspect with yourself, is it gives you that challenge to be able to say, okay, this is my new goal now. So my new goal is obviously one, to complete the class, right? But the new goal within that class is I want to try to do X number of push-ups on the ball, or I want to do more push-ups on the ball than I did the last class. And so that's kind of how they can compete with themselves. So whether you're doing Cardiosport or you're designing your own format, that's something that you can incorporate, is that physical challenge. And that allows for that competition, kind of not necessarily in a sport or a team against another team, but with themselves. So.
Yeah, and I think that's a great point. Like, like Lisa said, in any program you can do it. In ours, what we do is what she's saying. We have a lot of things where, like, at the end of class, you'll toe tap the ball for 3 minutes, and that's your goal. Not everyone can do that day one. That's expected, and that's the understanding. And that should be obviously across the board with any program. But it is, you know, it's really about like your own competitive. The reason I really harp on that is that although there certainly are programs out there that have kind of a competitive aspect, like you versus me versus Lisa, that our belief system is really that competition belongs on the field or the ice or the court or whatever, because, and that internal competition belongs in wellness, because obviously wellness is about making your body prepared for competition or daily life, which right now seems to be a competition, or seems to be a revolving door, changing constantly. And so the worst possible situation as a wellness expert that I could see happening is someone getting injured in wellness, right? So our goal is always about, and unfortunately, just when you inject competition, right? Me versus you, somebody comes in that's out of shape, you know, that hasn't worked out for years versus somebody who is really in shape. Like if that person feels like they have to keep up with someone else, they have to do X number of things or this long or this much weight, then it creates a situation where they may not feel uncomfortable saying no or what have you, or feel awkward. And so they do it and then something happens to them. So in our world, what really we kind of harp on throughout just the industry, but also our program is really about, you know, it's not really about what you can, it's definitely not about what you can do today. It's about where you can go tomorrow. And it's not about, you know, one session kind of changing your life. It's about staying consistent with long-term fitness and wellness. And so the first key to do that is to obviously find what you love. So no matter what that is, if you like dance, or we've talked about this, like yoga, all those things, find it, love it, you'll stay with it. If you stay with it, it's a good strategy to get the results. So, you know, that's a little bit off the competition piece, but it's important to understand that, like for us, it really becomes like an internal competition with yourself of constantly trying to improve, which is what athletes are accustomed to. So if you ever watched a soccer player flip the ball up in the air and kind of tap it, you know, do like a rainbow, like that's a competition in themselves to figure out that puzzle. Like what athletes are mainly doing the whole time is solving puzzles over and over and over again. And most athletic-minded people find that they don't get demotivated by failing because they're so used to it. Every athlete across the country, including the best in the world, fail more than they succeed. That's how they got so good. They do it more times than you could ever imagine. And so that failure propels an athletic-minded person to figure out the puzzle, like Lisa said, say with like push-ups on a soccer ball, things like that. So I know we only have a few minutes here, so I want to jump to the next quick question from Kelly for Hungerford. All right, so she asked me, how would you approach virtual engagement of athletic-minded students differently than other rec centers users as we work towards reopening, getting students back in? Kelly, can you just explain a little bit? And let Lisa, can you read it? I don't know if you can see it.
It's not showing up on my.
Yeah,
no, I had accidentally sent it just to you. I'm still not a Zoom expert. We'll say I'll repost it to the public chat now that I.
It's okay. No, sorry, I just don't believe
how to do that. But yeah, I'm just curious. I've attended a lot of these ideas in motion roundtables, and a lot of professionals are talking about how to virtually engage their students, you know, as they work toward reopening their rec centers. And I'm wondering if you have any advice on how the information you've laid out in this presentation for engaging athletic-minded students in fitness classes, how that might translate to virtual engagement. You know, do you have a different marketing strategy for them for things like social media?
Yeah, that's a great question. Yeah, so we actually have like a full video on demand platform. So we do this every day in video platform format. But what I would recommend, so we definitely do, but what I would recommend is like if you're trying to engage that athletic-minded person and you're doing like a traditional kind of circuit or HIIT training or whatever, I would intersperse, like the simplest thing you could do is tell them to grab a ball, okay, and have it in the training. And in between the exercises you're having them do, have them do something with the ball. So whether that's like a figure 8 or like literally like getting a tennis racket and a tennis ball and having them walk from one end of the room to the other and like bounce the ball on the tennis racket. So something that's challenging their mind, right? And making them actually like think about something other than exercise. And then very quickly, once they finish it, have them getting right back into another exercise set, right? So I might say like, you know, grab a soccer ball. If I was training them, like, I want you to punch it up in the air. You can't, I don't have a soccer ball here, but you like punch it up in the air. So keep it up in the air and keep punching it back and forth. 30, you know, I would have them do that. I wouldn't tell them that, but have them do it for like 30 seconds and then be like, you know, put it down, right back into the mountain climbers, and then back up, recover, give them that active recovery, but keep their brain engaged and keep them thinking and moving and connected to exercise, but give them a recovery their body needs, then right back down, right into the mountain climbers, right? Does that make sense to you guys? So I would basically, immerse, like basically make their recoveries active. Obviously, if they want water, they can stop and get it, but make their recoveries active so their mind stays active even when their body rests.
Yeah, and I just to piece in there with what Hilary said, a lot of times, you know, we in traditional fitness will say, okay, here's what's coming, and we'll give the whole layout of the class, and this is what to expect, and you know, and that's something that you might want to, you know, maybe not do if you're doing a virtual session, or if you're doing a session at all, because this, you know, that helps their mind stay engaged, because if they know this is what's coming every time, then they're going to be less likely to stay engaged, because they don't need to. They know what to expect. And especially if you're doing the same thing over and over and over again. And this is why, like when I train athletes, if I know they're going to be overthinking, or if I know that they are overthinking an element of what we're doing, this skill that we're working on, I might have them stop and just do like 5 push-ups, and they have no idea why. And and they're just like, what are you telling me to do? But that gets their mind off of it enough to where I can say, okay, let's get back up and go for it again. And usually that is like their best jump, or their best run through, or whatever it is, because they're not thinking so much about it. So any way that you can get them to vary whether it's varying the equipment that you're using, if it's playing with intervals, if it's not providing as much of a description. Obviously you want people to be safe, so there's an element of that too, but you cannot provide as much of a overview, and emphasize that you want them to be more reactionary. So if you say drop and give me 10, you want them to drop and give you 10 right away, you know? And so that's a way that you can kind of incorporate those little surprises throughout the workout, I guess. You can even tell them there will be surprises, just to kind of cue that up, but then, you know, not tell them when that's going to happen. So that's a good way for them to kind of get that same element of what we're talking about here.
Yeah, and I think that's a great point. I think it's the unpredictable nature of what's coming, which is what keeps an athlete's mind engaged and excited. And then if you can inject play in their recovery, we can, you know, if anyone's interested, I'm happy to send some videos to whoever emails me, of some examples of what I'm talking about, some just basic things you guys could do. And if
Hilary, do you want to share that screen again with our emails on it, just in case they want to reach out?
Yeah. Let me go back here. All the internets. Okay, so let me share the screen. Yeah. So if anyone wants to have a better, you know, obviously reach out to Lisa with questions, but if anyone's interested in some examples of what we're talking about, I'm happy to send you some videos to take a look at so you can see what I mean. Just email me. We also have, like I said, I don't want to product push, but I just want to offer, we do have like a video on demand session system. And if anyone's interested, you can get a free trial. So you guys could check it out if you wanted.
I know we're almost at time, so feel free to drop any questions in the chat box, or again, reach out to Hilary or I. We do have the Cardiosport program at UGA, and have just, it's been, 2 years now, I guess?
Yeah, 2 years, yeah.
And so have really enjoyed working with Hilary and the team, and would be happy to chat with anybody that's interested in possibly bringing that on too. So.
Thank you, everyone. Does anyone have any final questions, or is there anything else out there? Thank you. You're welcome, Erin. Thank you for the note. I appreciate it. Thank you, Jamie. Thank you, Michael. Yep. Awesome. Thanks, guys. If you have any questions, just don't hesitate to email us.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.